podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? Josh Moroles here. I got a special guest, JP Montoya, here. But before we go into the podcast, this podcast is not meant to bring up old memories, which I'm sure it is. But the point of this podcast is to be able to tell the truth from everybody's perspective of who participated in that historic event that night. So, JP Montoya was working EMS at night. Kind of let us know what you're going to talk about and what your role was that night.
Well, I was working Port Isabel EMS. It was my second job. I was at the time a Brownsville Fire Department. I was working for the Brownsville Fire Department, and then I needed a second job. They were only paying so much, so you got a second job, you know. So I was just a medic there.
So everybody thought that you were the fireman at night. So I think that was your second job or your first job. Working EMS was your second.
No, being the Brownsville Fire Department was my first job. And I picked up a second job with Port Isabel EMS because the director needed some help out. I had worked with them before, and he said, "All right, well, I should pick up some hours." I goes, "All right."
So take us back to that night because I think it's a very interesting topic about these guys. These four fishermen were in the water for a good hour and a half before help got there. What do you remember that night? Like, how did you get dispatched? What do you remember from the very beginning?
Well, it was about 2:00 in the morning, and I remember it was just a habit from when I used to work at Brownsville EMS back in the day before they merged. I always had the radio with me. It didn't matter. I always had the radio on, always listening to it. And I was sitting in the office, and I just hear all of a sudden the police officers, "Dispatch, the bridge is collapsed. I think we're under attack." So all kinds of, I don't remember the exact chatter, but there was a lot of things that went on the radio. So I went and told my partner, and I told him, "Hey, man, we need to get up and go because something happened with the bridge. There's a wreck or something happened." And so we got up and we took off to go see what we can do. We found out the bridge had fallen, and this is all you could hear on the radio, the bridge, we're under attack. We went down to I guess back in the day, they used to have a movie rental place right next to what's the place called? Right to the right when you're getting onto the causeway.
Where the dolphin watch is?
Yeah, there you go. So we stood. I stood there by myself for a little while, wondering how can we get out there to do something. And then, honestly, everybody says, "Well, they train you to do stuff like this. You're a medic, you're a firefighter, you should know what to do."
That's what you get paid for.
Yeah, that's what you get paid for. There's no training for something like that. Well, nobody expects that to happen. And it did, and it happened, and it was just awe. And you just stop for a minute and say, "What do I need? What are my resources?" There is some training as far as disaster planning and stuff like that, but nothing to this extent, nothing that we could have possibly imagined. I remember the guy from the Dolphin Watch, I guess the captain. I remember his name. He was just like, "Get your stuff. I'll get you on my boat. We'll take you out there." And I just couldn't really gather myself and say, "All right, let's just go." So I finally told him, like, "You know what? Let me go back to the ambulance. Let's get our stuff." I told my partner, "Let's get our stuff and let's get on the boat and let's go out there." And not knowing if it was an attack, because nobody at that point, it was post 9/11.
Oh, you didn't even know?
No, nobody knew what was going on. So, like, let's just go. And by that time, I had managed to get through communication to Brownsville and let them know, call San Benito, because I think they had a dive team at the time. Our dive team send a couple of ambulances and send a couple of fire trucks out, rescue trucks and stuff, and get the guys out here. We had a dive team also, get them together. So that was all said and done. We were taking off. When I get there, when we were all getting ready to go on the boat, those Fresno's EMS showed up. I know there was 3 ambulances because there was 3 teams that went out there on the boat. And we went out there, and nobody's knowing what happened. There's still everybody's like, "Well, what's going on?" When we get out there, we noticed that we came back underneath the bridge to the north side of it, and you could see the lights and everything, and you can see the helicopter action, and you look over, and there's that car stuck on the pillar on the stanchion, and it looked mangled. The engine had, I guess it had hit so hard on the pylon, the actual engine itself had popped out of the car and landed right next to it. When we got up there, we jumped onto the stanchion. There was 4 of us.
How high was the...
Man, I can't remember, but I remember that we had to kind of time it out with the waves that were coming in, so that one would get on, the other one would get off, and we'd have to throw the equipment to each other. And it was a small, tight space, so we all kind of crammed in there. It's like, what are we doing here? And then I don't know how David Lopez got out there, the firefighter. He was working that night. I don't know how he got out there, but he was like, hey, there's a guy in here. We need to get out. And I was like, what? Everybody's kind of like, how are we going to do that? You know, those kind of rescues, those kind of extrications, you don't train for, you know, especially in that kind of like that situation.
That magnitude of the situation.
Yeah, no, it was big. And so me being at that time a lot thinner back then, a lot better shape and a lot smaller than most of the guys that were out there, kind of like I knew it. I knew I was the one, right? And there's a lot of hesitation because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how secure that car is. And you can see it. You know, you can see it kind of moving back and forth. So it wasn't very stable on there. I think David managed to get some rope around, tie it up to the pylons as best as he could. And I told him, all right, man, we'll take off the windshield and let's see what we can do for the guy. So they gave me a seat collar for his neck and a few things to go in there to see what I can do as far as first aid and try to figure out what we're going to do to try to get him out. As soon as I got in there, I couldn't even recognize it as the inside of a vehicle because everything was just so damaged. And before that, I had actually said, is the guy even like, you know, hey, man, is the guy even alive in there? And yeah, David goes, yeah, he's alive. And then, hey, I think he looked down and said something to the guy. And all I saw was Mr. Hinojosa's thumb go up through the passenger side window. And I was like, oh, there is somebody alive in there.
And he's not a small guy, right? Either, right?
No, from what I remember him being, my guesstimation at that time, he must have been about 6 foot. I was thinking he's about 6 foot, maybe 260, 270. That's what I was thinking. I'm thinking this is going to be not easy to get him out of here. I remember this specifically. I mean, I don't know what anybody else heard, but I know that when I was in the vehicle with him, we never exchanged words because he couldn't speak. He was badly injured enough that he could not speak. Now, maybe he could speak before I got there, but when I was there, we never said anything to each other. All I did was talk to him and try to comfort him as best as I could while we were in that situation. Because you could now when I'm inside that vehicle, you could see like the car. Now you can feel the car actually moving while we're inside. Now my thing is, all right, let's get to it. Let's get to primary assessment. I was thinking, get the jaws of life out of here. But by the time somebody got that equipment out there, you know, something could have happened. It would have been too late. We were trying to get him out of there as fast as we could. He was very, very badly injured. When I did my initial assessment, I could tell, you know, chances are, you know, this is going to be a very long road to recovery. What
did you see when you got in there?
When I got in there, I saw that the actual steering column itself had been broken off. I can't remember into which direction, but it was broken off. It was just off to the side. And I could actually grab the whole steering column and move it out of the way. Wow. His seat had been broken. I don't know how, but he was actually laying flat. Almost his head was touching the back of the backrest of the back seat, and the passenger side was just completely gone. You know, I couldn't remember if there was a chair there or not, or a seat there. I went in there and I was like, all right, I need to get him. I need to get his legs and start to get him towards the way. By that time, everybody who had been on there, they managed to break the door or push it all the way back on the passenger side, all the way to the front. That way now it's open. Now there's an open space. But mind you, the way it's hanging, to get him out, he's still going to have to get out of the vehicle. And there's an open area that's kind of at the edge of that stanchion. So we're right on the edge of it, right? So somebody gets a backboard in there, and I reached down to try to grab his legs to move him. And it's like, man, he's stuck. The right leg, which was closer to the passenger door, was a little bit easier to get out. And I remember this specifically. I'll never forget this. And I could hear his screaming, but it was mumbled because he couldn't speak. I remember that specifically. And when I look at him, it just looked like somebody had hit him in the face, or something was wrong with his jaw. Something was wrong where he couldn't communicate. So when I tried to get the other leg, I noticed right away he had that leg was gone. Like, it was broken in several different places, but it was stuck underneath the dashboard or whatever it's cut on. And I was like, man, how am I going to get this guy out of here without hurting him? I turned around and told him, Mr. Hinojosa, And at that time, I didn't know his name. I was like, hey, man, it's going to hurt. I know you're in a lot of pain already. Like, man, just hold on, all right? And he, again, his communication with his thumb. It's like, all right, here we go. So I reached down there, I grabbed his leg, and I pulled as hard as I could because I had to get him out. And I felt it. I felt the snap. I felt me having inflict more pain into somebody who's that badly injured. And I could hear him just, in his way of screaming, his moaning is just so loud. Got him out, got him in, and I went back right to him and said, hey, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, but we need to get you out. And then it was taking a little while because the guys couldn't really coordinate outside on how to grab him and get him out.
How many people were on that slab of?
From what I remember, there was 3 teams. It was 5 of us EMS guys. It was David Lopez, and I think there was 2 sheriff's officers or deputies on there. 7, I guess. Round about 7. There wasn't a whole lot of room for a lot of people to get on there. So I'm there kind of like, what's going on? I'm waiting. So there, while I'm waiting, remember, you're at a 45-degree angle in that vehicle, so I kind of took a rest and I kind of leaned back, looking back down at the water through the back windshield. And I remember seeing those lights. I remember seeing the lights on those vehicles that were still in the car. I kept thinking to myself, there's people still in there. Maybe they have a chance. But at that point, we were involved with this, and so we had to get that. I'm not a good swimmer. I wouldn't. I don't think it would have lasted too long.
So you're like, through your peripheral vision, did you see anything that was going on except in that little area?
No, it was so focused. Yeah, just so focused on what we were doing. I mean, that was a tough enough rescue. So I turn around and David says, "Hey, man, if this boat goes in, you just, we'll get you." I remember that. I told Mr. Gaspar. I told him, hey, told him, hey, if you feel a rush of water, because it looked like he couldn't even see. From the injuries that he had, it looked like he couldn't even see. And I told him, hey, if you feel a rush of water, hold your breath, man, because we're both going in and we're both coming out. I remember that. And again, he gave me the thumbs up. So by that time, they managed to get the backboard in. I got him on the backboard, and I'm doing my best because he's just so broken up and hard to keep in one place because one leg would fall down because of the injuries. And so I grabbed him, like, hey, somebody grab his pant legs. And I remember somebody, I don't know who it was, but I holding out to his legs. And I get it underneath him. And again, the guy wasn't a small guy. Try to get the backboard underneath, got the C-collar on him, try to get him out. And my God, it was a workout. It was very difficult. I remember at one point, like I just felt like my muscles were burning. I was just on fire. And I was like, man, I'm going to fall. Like, I can't hold him anymore. It was just so intense. He was a big guy. It was a lot of work. And I remember looking up, and I remember somebody's arm coming down and reaching down, grabbing the guy's belt, just holding on to it. I'm like, oh, and I took a quick breath, just kind of like, all right, regroup. And I go back, and okay, now we started to pull him up. Everybody started to grab. I could see people trying to help out. And then, man, we got to get him out, guys. We got to get him out of here. We got to get out of here. And at the last minute, when we're pulling up, man, I can't push any harder, man. I can't. You guys need to do something, Mr. That's when Mr. Hinojosa reached up, grabbed the side of the car, the top side of the car, and kind of helped us to pull him. And with that one good arm, he managed to pull and help a little bit. And I'm like, man, good job, dude. Good job. So we get up there and we get him out, transport. But this time, I remember that the Coast Guard was there waiting for us, or was outside where the Dolphin Watch boat was at. And I was like, okay, all right, man. The Coast Guard is here to do something, help out, right? And those guys should, I was thinking, man, these are the rescue guys. It's the water. This is their area, And so when we're trying to get him back onto the Coast Guard boat, I remember we had to time everything out because of the waves, of the way it was going. And so we got him. And we had to be quick because, he's a big guy and everybody has to put all hands on. Then everybody managed to go out. And on the way over there, I noticed that he really wasn't moving very much. And I was thinking, man, we need to get faster, And by that time, the IVs were started, fluids were going, and we got him back to the bayside, the staging area, which was, I guess, by the Dolphin area, the Dolphin Watch. That's where they had met him. And we put him in the ambulance, And I was like, hey, man, take care of this guy, dude. This guy's been too much already. And then I found out later on that he didn't make it. It was kind of like a bummer, man. It's just poor guy, you know.
You did everything you could that you possibly could.
Yeah.
How long was the time frame from when you got him out of the vehicle to when you got back onto the...
From the time we got him out and thinking, all right, I mean, he's got a chance now. I swear to God, from what I remember, it was just way too long. It felt like maybe 30 to 40 minutes.
Wow.
And that's way too long. And I remember seeing, somebody said that the news people were already there, the reporters or whatever. And I had just started with EMS, Brownsville EMS in 98. And I always said, if you're still on scene with an injured patient and the reporters show up, you've been there too long.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Because there's time frames, you know, that you need to get somebody to the hospital. There's nothing you can do out there for somebody that's that badly injured. You need surgery, you need doctors, you need all those people that can do that stuff. But, yeah.
So Gaspar was sent to Harlingen, correct?
My understanding from the EMS guys that I spoke to later on were he went to Valley Regional, and I believe that he went to Harlingen for an autopsy.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Wow. Yeah, it's just a very interesting. Obviously, everything is interesting about that night. I just didn't really understand the magnitude and the depth that this whole thing is about. Like, everybody's reached out. A lot of people have commented on the podcast. How does it make you feel that we're telling this story now?
To be honest with you, I was very surprised when I found out that there was this gag order on the fishermen, and I thought, you know, from what I had known up until this point, was that those fishermen just went out, just happened to be there by chance. They helped out a few people, and I didn't know all the ramifications that happened afterwards, as far as with having to deal with a gag order and lawyers and all that other stuff. I thought, why are they making such a big deal? These guys did a great job. You know, any normal citizen, you know, some people would be afraid of, like, they don't want to touch it, go near it.
Yeah.
And these guys helped out, they did what they could, you know. I think they're the heroes, you know, good for them, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting how the media kind of portrays this, because we talked to a reporter the other day, and he says every year they have the ceremony out there. People go out there, they tell a little story, and then that's it. Like, that's it. Like, there's no depth in it. And I know for a fact that there was so many people that witnessed it. There was people on the bridge that were taking pictures looking down. I mean, it was a huge event that a lot of people witnessed.
Yeah. I think it was, it was post 9/11, so the big thing was focused on this 9/11 stuff that was going on, that was a big deal. That was when the United States gets attacked on our own soil. It doesn't happen, you know?
Yeah.
9/15 for us, if 9/11 hadn't happened, and I don't mean to make it sound like, you know, those guys, I mean, 9/11, everybody's proud now, proud American, right? 9/15, I mean, the island, Port Isabel, they should have, I don't know, that's their 9/11, you know, that kind of was. It just seemed like it was downplayed so much by so many people that were involved in whatever other alternative method or what alternatives they were up to, you know, but I don't know.
And the question is, why? Why is it downplayed so much?
Yeah, I don't know.
Let me ask you this, JP. I want people to understand, because we had a conversation and we've been keeping in touch, and you were hesitant about coming out on the podcast, and for good reason. I completely understand. But when people call you a hero, what goes through your head?
I don't associate myself with a hero. I think the heroes are you know, those guys that go overseas, those guys that are fighting our military right now, the firemen that are actively working right now, the EMS guys, all those guys are heroes. That was back then. I mean, I don't think so.
But you still work in the scene, like you still save lives, because we even had conversations. Like, you're experienced. That's what I'm trying to get across, is that you know exactly what you're doing. Like, if I were to be hurt or sent to the hospital, I'd want you to work on me, because you're what I get from you is you're just a no bullshit guy. You get it done, period.
Yeah, yeah. There's a few people that I've worked with my time that'll totally verify that. I mean, it's not because I think I'm better than anybody else. It's just that you learn, and you don't want to make a mistake, especially when you have somebody's life in your hands. You want to make sure that all the outcomes are for the best, and you didn't do anything that that made it worse. Like I have this great example that this one never leaves my head. If you don't, if that's all right,
please.
It was one of my first pediatric cardiac arrests when I was working with Brownsville EMS. Me and my partner responded, and a lot of times you hear this, pediatric arrest, and you go there, and it's not really that bad, You get there, we got to this one, and and this little girl, for whatever reasons, was cold blue cardiac arrest. We worked her, and I remember working that little girl almost textbook perfect, like my instructors taught me in school, perfect situation, textbook, monitor, medications, intubation, IVs, everything. All of us, me and my partner, we worked it as hard as we could. I shouldn't say it. And we get to the hospital, and we think, maybe it's a save, maybe it isn't. We find out a few minutes later, 20 minutes later, because they worked on her for about an hour at the hospital, she didn't make it. And I thought, this one haunts me because I think, is there anything that I did wrong? And I know that it was textbook, and sometimes you can't save them all, and that's the one that stays in my head. So I always said, I'm going to do the best that I can to make sure that if I have reflections on this, that I didn't do anything to make them worse.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting thing because I think a lot of people that night at South Padre Island or on the bridge, they did that. They even despite the fear of going in, they still went in because there's people there. They didn't want to live with that regret of not doing anything. I think it's a very interesting topic. But JP Montoya, obviously thank you very much for coming out on the podcast because I know you didn't want to come out. I know for a fact, but I was like, kept reeling in you. I was like, come on, dude, tell your side of the story because I honestly believe that this is one of the most interesting stories that people are going to hear this year, honestly, because it's going to be the 20th year and we just want to have as much truth from this podcast from as many different perspectives of people that were on that water that night. And I think that's really important. So, JP, do you want to say anything else? You want to add anything else to that night that you remember?
No, the people that were there and the people that know what they did, and a lot of them, I've run into people with like little plaques and stuff that I didn't even know were out there, and I don't want to say the entities or businesses or whoever. It's just like I don't remember seeing them out there. I don't remember them doing anything, but they're proud, and that's great. If that's what they wanted. If maybe they remember something I don't. Maybe they were there in a different capacity than I was. Yeah. And that's fine. I don't. We didn't do what we did to look for any kind of reward. We didn't look for anything. We were there to do a job that we were hoping, and we would have done it for anybody. Civil servants, people that go to the military, people that are out there hospital people. We're out there, and a lot of times we're doing good work for our own community, and this is what we thrive on. Like, can I talk about something?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
It's like some of these people that took off, some of the nurses that just left because, they chased the money. They left their community. The people that are actually here, the core nurses that are still here at the hospital, they're the ones that are dedicating all their time and efforts to taking care of people in their community because that's what they value and that's what they care about.
Hearing that, I'll say on behalf of Robert and everybody else that thank you for that night. I mean, I know you're not going to accept it, but I believe you're talking to an unsung hero that didn't get any of the love and everything. So on behalf of the podcast, thank you very much for being out there that night, sharing your story, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man.
You bet.